Hello, everybody, and welcome to MaryvilleSaints.com and Saints Vision. I'm Jim Powers as we continue to move on through our weekly coaches shows, and joining us is our head cross-country coach, Micky Kaufman. And first off, Micky, a great weekend, especially on the guys' side of things. 4 runners break not only their PRs, but also some of the best marks that they've had running to get things going this year.
Yeah, we had 2 meets over the weekend. The guys did outstanding at Memphis and at Principia. And the girls did a pretty good job too, obviously, highlighted by, on the men's side, by Anthony Allen's performance, 4th place finish overall. I think he lost to one guy from Mississippi State and 2 guys from Arkansas State, something like that. So he was the first non-Division I finisher at that race. Was a really great performance by him. And then we had Anthony Allen, Kyle Deacon, Chip Zeeding, all went under the previous school record for 4 miles. And Josh McKinley and Tyler Urich weren't far off it, so almost too many good things to highlight for the men.
You know, I think the one name, and we kind of just briefly mentioned Kyle last week, coming back from the red shirt, but to have him back is almost got to be kind of that steadying force, and it's really going to push some of the other guys on the men's team to continue to get better.
Yeah, Kyle's an outstanding leader. The other guys kind of pace themselves off him in workouts and in races for that matter. Unfortunately, in this one, he just got out a little too slow and got kind of stuck behind. But otherwise, I would have expected him to be probably a little further up and up there with Andy, maybe even Anthony. But he had a little bit of a slow start and just was kind of playing catch-up the whole race. But having him back in the mix this year in both workouts and races is just a tremendous addition kind of to our team when he wasn't there all the time last year.
Talk about the women's side of things, and once again, a nice weekend for the women as well.
Yeah, we started it off at Principia. One of our freshmen finished second, ran the fastest time we've ever had by a freshman in a 4K race, 16:21, and that was Kelly Malib. And then the next day we went to Memphis and had a good contingent of runners run very well there. Our freshmen struggled a little bit just with kind of being overwhelmed first race, getting out a little fast, a huge race, a little bit of a downhill fast start. So they got a little bit excited there in the beginning, but our returners, their times were fantastic, and efforts by everybody were fantastic. Emily Mauk was our top finisher for the first time in a Maryville uniform, so that was outstanding. Just barely getting ahead of Elizabeth.
How much did the heat play a factor? I know, Principia and Memphis over the weekend, both places just really, really warm and humid. How did that affect, kind of how the race setup was?
Sure. At Principia, we actually postponed the race about a half an hour just to try and let some more shade get on the course. And we started out a little bit slower that day. We wanted to make sure that we had enough gas at the finish and didn't dehydrate ourselves, wear ourselves out too early. At Memphis, it wasn't as big of a deal as far as the heat goes. It was still really humid. The races were at 9:20 at night and 10 o'clock at night for the men and women, so it was late enough that we didn't have to worry about the sun beating down on us, but wasn't the coolest of evenings either.
And most people will not understand this, but it's very rare where you're going to go back-to-back meets, especially like this. Talk about the mindset in scheduling back-to-backs and then, using it as a tool to get ready and get prepared for stuff that's going to happen later on down the line.
Yeah, back-to-back races are always tough, more for the coaching staff than anybody else. In cross-country, those girls and guys didn't race on Friday and then Saturday. We just sent some to a race on Friday and some to a race on Saturday. Friday's race was a little bit shorter, with Saturday's race being a little bit longer, so we just kind of split them up, feeling where they would do best, as well as just kind of that training component. Every race is also a training component of what's going to be most beneficial for the individual. Now, that being said, obviously the coaches are out there both days, and when you have a one-day meet followed by almost a two-day overnight trip, that was tough. So it was 3 days of getting out there. And Sunday morning's long run, we had to cut a little bit short with the races being on Saturday night rather than Saturday morning.
And that's a great point. And it kind of gives, the shorter races that chance for maybe the freshmen or some of the newbies to kind of get acclimated to a college meet and to get them ready to go.
Right. We only ran underclassmen at that 4K to just kind of give them an introduction into the season, an introduction into college racing, especially for the men. They're having to double their endurance by the end of the year as far as races go. usually running the 5K in high school, and now they have to run a 10K. So it's nice to get kind of an intermediate distance between that 5K and those 8K and 10K races. So they ran a 6K or a 4 mile over the weekend, which is just a really nice start to kind of get them accustomed to that extra distance.
Outstanding, and it kind of gives you a week breather here because next week we have the big meet down at Six Flags, and we're going to talk a lot about that next week. But, it's going to be a great lead up and some great things from this past weekend to build on for the meet next weekend.
Yeah, we're going to rest up a little bit this week, take Saturday off, and just kind of recharge our batteries after that first race, and then get going for our home meet the next weekend. And we'll have back-to-back weekend races, which we don't do very often. So the next 2 weeks will be a little grueling, so we'll back off just a little bit in terms of the intensity, at least at the beginning of this week, and then at the end of next week.
Awesome, Mickey. Well, thanks so much. We'll talk next week to preview our home meet over at Six Flags next weekend.
Yeah, thanks, Jim.
Micky Kaufman joins us, and once again, we'll talk with Coach next week as we get a chance to preview our home meet that we're going to host next weekend over at Six Flags. It's going to be a lot of fun. Want to see a lot of folks coming down to represent Maryville University. For Coach Kaufman, I'm Jim Powers. Thanks so much for joining us on MaryvilleSaints.com and Saints Vision. Have a great week, and as always, go Saints.